Hello and welcome back to the second half of the kickoff of the Batch 5 program today. Thank you very much for staying on the call or in the event. Next up, we have the Roche pitches and an introduction by Dr. Jochen Holebaus, Head of Digital Health Innovations at Roche Diagnostics. And yeah, Jochen, he's here in person, so stage is yours. Thank you for coming.
Also, welcome from my side, and thanks a lot for the intro and for organizing. I think we already had a great first part of the event today, of the kickoff. And yeah, I'm actually very thankful that we can drive this forward in an increasing, exciting matter, despite the a bit unusual times that we have currently. So this is great that everybody is coming, is participating. I'm especially thankful to the startups from all around the globe that are participating today, are pitching, went through our selection process already, and are, I'm sure, also excited to share today about what they want to do, what they want to bring to the healthcare system in digital innovation. As you know, we are active globally now also, not just with the startups that we have here today, but we are active in the Silicon Valley, we are active in Singapore, where we are currently running so-called Batch 0, a first batch that is targeted to specific startups from global, but also from our local affiliates that have been selected. And next week, we will actually also have a joint session between the startups here in the Batch 5 of Munich and the Batch 0 of Singapore with a joint mentoring. So this is also very, very exciting for us. Now, that said, you know, and I think we learned today, implementation of healthcare at the end is a local game. It's unfortunately not a global game, right? So there are a lot of local things that you have to consider. And I'm very also grateful and want to thank Gottfried Ludewig and Jörg Debertin for their speeches today, for highlighting what they are doing to transform healthcare. I think very nicely and also very exciting for me is that they have actually, you know, looking at what they presented and how they presented it, it was almost like another startup pitch, right? They actually said, yeah, we need to experiment. We made some framework laws, but we are learning on the go. We are trying to change things to make it adaptive to the needs of digital health, of the patients, of the providers, of the startups. And I think that's the right way. And I'm super excited that Germany is moving ahead in that speed. And I'm sure a lot of our startups can also benefit from that new way of doing things. So yeah, today I want to also now spend a couple of words on the focus topics that we are working on. So I think we have 2 slides here prepared. One is more our general slide, and the guests or the visitors here that have been watching us before on the batches, they have seen a similar slide, probably just in a different layout, because our overall focus areas are not necessarily changing, right? We are on the one hand working on our internal value chain. This is more tools for R&D, where we want to improve the way we develop products or we validate products. But then we have the customer solutions as a second step, where we work on solutions for the lab, which is more our traditional customer, but then also for physicians and increasingly also going directly or indirectly to the patient. At the end, and we shouldn't really forget that, the benefits. So what do we bring to the healthcare systems together with the startups we are working on? And I think this is very, very important. You need to create some value, but you also need to prove that to create the value that's actually promising in order to get some reimbursement. And I think the DIGA, again, going back to the speeches we have heard today from the Federal Ministry of Health, also went into that direction. Then on the next slide, we have just briefly outlined the startups that you will see today. So it's a broad mix on our focus topics. We have one startup in the area of the internal value chain, and then we have a few startups, actually 5, that are focused on customer solutions, more focused on physicians and patients. But then actually we're also happy to have a startup that is focusing on the value-based healthcare to actually measure outcome, which might sound easier than it is at the end, you know, to really measure in a concise way with the digital solutions or with any solution. Am I actually improving the outcome of the patient? am I at the same time improving or reducing the costs or improving the efficiency at the hospital or at the doctor? Unfortunately, also because we have quite fragmented data silos still in healthcare, that is actually quite a difficult task, and we are happy to also now have startups that are focusing on that area and looking into value-based healthcare as a concept that is emerging and is a big trend. So that's all from my side. So I wish everybody a great set of pitches, and hope to also, well, actually look very much forward to the next months when we will be working with the startups together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jochen, for the great insights into, well, the vision for the upcoming batch from a Roche perspective, but also thank you very much for the continuously great collaboration we have here, and now coming to batch 5, really seeing the, well, alignment we have established. That being said, just as a quick reminder, because before we jump into the first pitch of a Roche startup, for questions, we use Slido, so please go to www.slide.do and enter the code batch5. You will directly come to an interface where you can type in your questions and direct them towards here to my iPad, and then I will, well, forward the questions and ask the questions to startup. That being said, we're then jumping quickly to the first startup. It's LabTwin. So if you've ever worked in a laboratory, you might know that it is very paper-driven and that you tend to lose notes. There are solutions out there, and I would say LabTwin has developed a very, very concise and good, suitable solution. So I'd love to welcome Magdalena to take us away and give more insights about LabTwin.
Thank you. Please share my screen.
Fantastic, we can see his screen.
Cool. Welcome everyone, pleasure to be here. My name is Magdalena Paluch, I'm the CEO of LabTwin. Our mission is to remove data graveyards with voice first and AI-powered digital lab assistant. LabTwin is a solution for real-time capture and access of information. We are an international startup based in Berlin. We have a very heterogeneous team of experts from various fields: life science, data science, engineering, design, bioinformatics, and change management. We are backed by Sartorius, a large laboratory equipment supplier, and Boston Consulting Group. Because of that, we have an agile and creative DNA of a startup while offering dependability of established processes, security, and support of a large corporation. We are now working with 7 out of the top 20 large pharma and chemical companies, as well as with some academic labs and CROs, both in Europe and in US. In the last decade, we moved from paper to glass, and by glass I mean electronic lab notebooks mostly. And although glass enabled us to capture data in a digital format, it made it still difficult, and these systems are now being referred to as graveyards of data. We want to make data truly dynamic, that can be accessed from anywhere, can be captured effortlessly, structured automatically, and finally, it can be harmonized across the organization. But for now, still the single common thread connecting all information in the lab is a scientist. We have been to hundreds of labs, and we've witnessed the challenges facing laboratories from data integrity perspective. In every single lab, we saw scientists working at the bench, very much disconnected from the most of the lab informatics software. We saw them interrupting what they were doing whenever they needed to get information during the experiment, and taking the time at the end of the day to report the notes and results in a clean digital format. In short, the experimentation and documentation were disconnected entirely. And often the delay between these two activities meant that the data was being lost or eventually recorded incorrectly. This delay in documentation can vary from 5 minutes all the way to 4 weeks in our current client's organization. It almost always results in more inadequate documentation, increased human error, and cognitive overload for scientists or technicians running 4 to 6 experiments in parallel. This, of course, impairs reproducibility and speed. Collecting, formatting, and transcribing notes are labor and time-intensive tasks. around a minimum of 30 minutes per day per scientist is spent copying notes from annotated protocols, paper notebook, post-its, all onto Excel tables and ELNs. We are quite confident that this valuable time can be invested much more wisely. LabTwin is available as a mobile application and web platform to address both the bench and the office or remote work. It is capable of understanding scientific context, workflows, and vocabulary. We pre-train our natural language processing model on the client's precise protocols, but also LabTwin continuously learns from the user and it gets better. With LabTwin, scientists can capture notes, follow verbally guided SOPs, or query databases directly from the point of experiment. The data is directly formatted in a structured manner as a table exportable to Excel or semi-automatically composed into a report. LabTwin is hands-free, so scientists can still wear gloves under the hood or handle animal surgery while capturing notes. Basically, gloves stay on and research continues. All the notes are gathered in one place, preventing data loss and unnecessary search and aggregation of fragmented information afterward. And the transcription step is removed by immediate digitization at the point of experiment. Scientists find it useful for bespoke work, in method development, for capturing deviations, troubleshooting, which makes it easier to reproduce their work. LabTwin has proven to be very helpful during in vivo studies and imaging work, enabling keeping not only hands, but also eyes on the experiment. In cell culture, scientists capture and access information without leaving the hood, degloving or contaminating the samples. And we're currently developing capabilities to support the workflows in the GMP space, where the time-saving benefits of LabTwin and contemporaneous documentation are even more impactful. Lastly, analytics and automation groups also see value in LabTwin, especially when it comes to helping them automate highly manual processes and labeling data for better harmonization. LabTwin, of course, works out of the box if you want to use it as a documentation tool. But since our mission is to make information dynamic, contextual, and actionable in real time, LabTwin is more powerful when connected. We make it easy to do so with our API. Lastly, LabTwin is final stages of getting ESOR certification and will soon be able to support all the Alcoa Plus principles. Thank you, and we are very excited to work with you.
Thank you very much, Magdalena, for the great presentation and the insights in your solution. Well, we already had the first question coming in, and it is, given that your solution is based a lot of on the spoken word, so how many languages do you cover at the moment? Is it only English, or do you have further languages there?
It's a very good question. So at the moment, of course, we support language because that's where the technology is developed the furthest. However, we are gearing up to also be able to cater to German, and then we'll be able to scale also in the near future to other languages.
Fantastic. Well, a question alongside this one is then, how does your expansion plan look like? When do you want to expand beyond, Germany, Europe, and then globally?
So that's purely, actually, it is not location specific, it's more language preferences. So right now, a lot of our clients are everywhere in Europe, Germany, France, Belgium, Switzerland, and also in US. So we're not limited in terms of location. As I mentioned, if there's English speakers, LabTwin works really well. And then we are planning on expanding to different languages. So there's no limits, let's say.
That's fantastic. Well, one last question. The data around data protection of employees. Do you see there any problems implementing your solutions and then looking at it from a data protection angle?
Of course. So as I mentioned, we are finishing ISO certification right at this moment. We take security very seriously. And of course, we're based in Germany, and we are all our operations are GDPR compliant. So we take, of course, data belongs to our customers, and we take it very seriously. I'm happy to share any details on all our security measures that we take after the talk.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Magdalena. It was great having you. And also thank you for the presentation again and answering all the questions.
Thank you.
All right, so then moving on to the next one. It's HS Blocks. They're based out of Atlanta, and they, well, formed a platform where they can combine multiple stakeholders across the patient journey. How they do it and how they cope with the issues coming alongside with it, Lynn will tell you more about it and give you insight into HS Blocks.
Thank you very much. I'll get my slides going here. Hopefully everyone can see my slides. So thanks to Roche as well as Plug and Play for bringing HS Blocks into the Creasphere ecosystem here in batch 5. And also greetings to our audience from Atlanta, Georgia in the US. Start by giving a little bit of background on our company. We started the company in 2017. We were funding the venture ourselves at this point in time, but we are pleased to talk about our historic background in use of machine learning as well as distributed ledger technology. Our goal with HS Blocks was to bring into the healthcare ecosystem 2 primary technologies, outputs of machine learning and use of permissioned access to data via distributed ledger from experiences that we had in both healthcare as well as fintech in the past. We are an organization that has also done quite a bit of work in track and trace in the supply chain area. This particular venture, we are involved with human biological sample tracking in the life sciences area, but more specifically, we are also focused on community care networks where we're doing social determinants of health work in the US today. We're pleased to have the opportunity to work with the Roche team, specifically in Argentina, with a community-based approach that they are doing, specifically as it relates to patient outcomes, as well as integration of, at the community level, physicians, labs, and patients. Our platform has sort of 4 key areas that we emphasize: patient status tracking, where we do different identification protocols and then do assessments, refer patients out to particular service providers, and then confirm services that have been rendered. The purpose being to share that information on a permission basis with patient consent across the ecosystem to various stakeholders. To do some of that work, we have built a communication engine that we use for integration with the different stakeholders in the ecosystem to bring both structured data as well as unstructured data, so charts and notes and things and images and things of that nature, into a comprehensive data set. That comprehensive data set is actually something we refer to as a longitudinal health record. In that record, we have built a patient matching algorithm to be able to bring different disparate sources of data together, aggregate them into different ontologies, and then serve that information up on a permission basis to the various stakeholders, which we'll talk about here in just a second. The smart contracts that we codify from a distributed ledger standpoint are where we are doing the governing of who receives what information, how much, and under what purview they are to receive that information. Also use those smart contracts for different business process automation components within the ecosystem. So from a globalization standpoint, our platform and our solutions on the platform support multi-byte characters, localization and globalization, and so we're prepared to deploy internationally. From a security and privacy standpoint, we are a SOC 2 Type 2 audited platform across all trust principles, with our auditors being Grant Thornton here in the United States. Our key partnerships, as I mentioned, Roche, certainly from the startup Creasphere, working on the Pioneer project with the team in Argentina, to bring patients, labs, and healthcare providers together on a network for permission data sharing. In the US, we're working with a large independent Blue Cross Blue Shield plan in the social determinants area to connect them with local community-based organizations. We had some discussion earlier in the presentations about healthcare being delivered at a local level. This project is to bring community organizations as well as social service agencies into connectivity with patients as well as healthcare providers. We are also a Microsoft Healthcare startup partner. Our use case that I've alluded to is in the social determinants area, and we talked a little bit earlier in the presentations about COVID-19 pandemic and how that has impacted vulnerable populations who have health inequities. And so at a neighborhood level, we are focused on bringing different disparate participants into the ecosystem and putting them on a platform for data sharing. It was mentioned, I think, in a couple of the presentations that interoperability and data sharing from different source systems is a challenge. That is one of the things that we are tackling in our organization. And to that end, we have also built a interoperability component called Yantra that is specifically geared for that purpose. From a IoT standpoint, natural language processing standpoint, bringing different structured and unstructured data into the system to address some of the more pertinent needs at the patient level, with the idea being to improve not only the patient experience, but also patient outcomes. Here's
sorry for the interruption, but looking
Sure.
at the time, we're slightly over, and I unfortunately have to cut you here.
Okay.
Regardless, we have a lot of questions, so I'm happy to address them towards you. Sure. And happy to share any further information afterwards. So first question, how do you plan to further develop your CuraBox platform?
So what we're focused on right at this point in time is bringing different stakeholders onto the platform. So we have different recruitment mechanisms using advocates to bring those organizations onto the platform. And then we will ultimately, as we see more data, do more machine learning approaches to optimize referrals within that network.
Okay, fantastic. And then one more question. It's about patient consent management. So how do you specifically enable the patient to pursue his consent management?
Sure. So we, with our Yantra tool, we have the ability to capture patient consent via smartphone, email, or audio or video recordings. And that information then can be used to interact with the smart contracts on the platform to share data on a permission basis where the patient's consent is needed.
Okay, fantastic. One last question from our side. So your platform is based on blockchain. Could you name some advantages and disadvantages you see to your solution using that technology?
Sure. I think that, the primary advantage is to bring folks into an ecosystem where there's traceability and accountability, as well as the provenance of the data to ensure that what you see is what I see. And from that standpoint, be able to then govern who receives that information on a replicated real-time basis using the smart contracts as the governing mechanism.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Lynn, for all the answers, for that great presentation. Happy to have you and looking forward to what you will do with our partner, Roche.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So, moving on to the next one, we're going to see Redivers Health. They've developed a solution which comes into place in a very hectic environment is targeted to support emergency room staff, which diseases they cover and how they do it. Jeff will be happy to give you some more insights during his presentation.
I'm going to share my screen here. Well, Fabian, thank you, and thank you to the team of Roche and Plug and Play for having us. My name is Jeff Dunn. I'm the founder and CEO of Redivivus Health. Redivivus is Latin for to bring back to life. And we have a company and a team that very much is driven by optimizing patient safety during time-critical events, such as cardiac arrest and sepsis. As you know, sepsis it affects about 50 million people in the world every year and leads to greater than 10 million lives lost worldwide. That makes up about 1 in 5 deaths across the globe. We believe at Redivivus Health that these time-critical events where a nurse or a doctor needs to make a split-second decision, there needs to be simple, easy-to-use software that can give you the turn-by-turn navigation through these events. Sepsis costs about $27 billion just in the United States alone, so it is one of the most costly diagnoses that we have in the United States. With our hospital partners to date, they're currently using our solution. We have found that sepsis is being missed up to 50% of the time, obviously leading to lives lost. And an interesting piece of research and data suggests that not making the sepsis diagnosis every hour that you spend not diagnosing that patient leads to an 8% increase in their mortality. So we have created at Redivivus Health an augmented intelligence solution that helps the nurse and the doctor to make those timely diagnoses in a time-sensitive fashion. It is supported on every form factor, including a phone, a tablet, or a workstation. And what we're trying to do is simplifying data to improve the diagnostic accuracy and efficiency of this incredibly time-sensitive diagnoses. What it currently acts as is a screening and diagnosis and compliance system right now, and also is used for the data that's gathered by it is used for reporting purposes. And what this does is it increases clinical accuracy, provider efficiency, and ultimately leads to provider confidence treating these emergency conditions. We are a team made up of doctors such as myself. We were founded by 5 doctors and are led by a team of critical care nurses and passionate technologists. Again, the technology has to be incredibly easy to use during a time-critical event, so simple, easy to implement is really at the forefront of how we've designed the tool. It's a blend of decision support, real-time documentation, and data analytics. And here's a screenshot, ultimately seeing what our data analytics dashboard looks like for sepsis, as well as it's supported by tablet as well as mobile phone apps, analytics, clinical guidance, and we take very, very seriously the idea of security. This next video shows you what it's like to launch our solution, and very easy to read here. The sepsis tool pulls in data from the EMR to be able to make to let the nurse know that these are abnormalities. So it's seen as an education and a decision support tool. As we go through your journey of diagnosing a sepsis patient, it listens to the EMR to make sure that the user, a nurse, and a doctor are making the right clinical ordering decisions. This is a patient with a respiratory illness, a pneumonia, and you can see that the sepsis outcome is above. Again, launching this from the digital record. As we click in here, we see what the sepsis severity is, and it's, again, pulling data from the EMR to be able to make the tool easier so that the clinical folks can make better decisions and better diagnosis and treatment decisions. As you continue to the end here, you're able to enable smart notifications so that a nurse and a doctor can make those critical decisions for a patient in the time that's needed to be made, which is the 3 and 6 hour bundle. All while capturing all of the decisions that are made to the second, which is incredibly important for data integrity. Here you can see the real-time document that has been created and shared in the patient record. Lastly, we are able to show what it looks like on the data analytics dashboard of sepsis outcomes, as well as managing this in real time. As we go to the pilot opportunities, we believe evolving the solution from a guided workflow solution to an automated sepsis detection system will improve the machine learning aspect of the tool. Also talking about biomarker incorporation and what it looks like in the European sepsis reporting. So if we're able to capture all of these events, what does that mean to seamlessly sync that with the agencies that need to know about these patients? Thank you for having us, and we're extremely excited to be part of Batch 5. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Jeff, for that well, great and insightful presentation. You were just talking about AI and that you down the road want to implement it further. One question from the audience is, will you make or will you introduce artificial intelligence for decision support or decision making in the treatment?
Absolutely. So we believe currently in our current state, we describe ourselves as augmented intelligence. So allowing a user to use technology to drive you through the algorithm. As you capture more data on our fronts, you can absolutely see how that data would support machine learning aspects of who does well and who doesn't do well within the sepsis realm. So that's really how we see the tool evolving with our work with Roche.
Sounds very interesting. Well, one more question. It's more around your IP. Do you have any patents on your software that has been developed so far?
Yes, we do have a patent. We just received it 3 months ago for a comprehensive diagnostic and treatment system. We were happy to do that after a 5-year process of applying for the patent.
Fantastic. Congratulations to that. Well, one more question, and then we unfortunately have to go to the next one. The question is around accuracy for your sepsis detection. I'm sure you have some metrics around that, how accurate your system is.
Yeah, great question. So to give you a couple of use cases of what we were able to do with actual customers, we did a pilot project with a 500-bed hospital in Kansas City and found in a 6-month period 250 sepsis patients that were not being currently found, leading to a decrease in mortality over a year of 30%. We've also seen an identification increase at smaller institutions and hospitals of 200–300% using our solution. So we believe that there's a lot of opportunities for different ecosystems where we could use the tool.
That's huge. Well, thank you so much for that. I'm sure there are a lot of more questions. I'm happy to connect you afterwards. So thanks, Jeff, again. Then moving on to the next company, we're going to see LifeGen. LifeGen drives an evolution towards value-based healthcare. Taking the stage now, Michael will give us direct insights on how to tackle key questions of the treatment outcome quantification. So Michael, the stage is yours. Feel free to take us away.
Thank you, Fabian, for the introduction. And you also saw us on Jochen's slides. We were a little bit more exotic one on the right side, the value-based healthcare topic, capturing outcomes and calculating the value that you have created. So my name is Michel. Welcome to LifeGen. Thank you, Creasphere, Roche, and Plug and Play for having us in this batch 5. And hello to my colleagues from this batch. Very exciting pitches so far. This is our founder's credo. Imagine a world in which you only pay for medicine if it helps you. And if you see here the founders on the right side, we have all very diverse backgrounds from educational roots or cultural roots, coming from Mexico, Europe, and Asia. But what unites us is the fact that we all have lost close family members because they didn't have access to the right therapies at the right time. So 2 years ago, we just had our corporate birthday. We decided to do something about that and make that better. from our perspective, access to healthcare should be universal. In the same time, and that's a challenge, healthcare systems should be sustainable because we are all also premium payers. And of course, there should be a clear focus on patient outcomes. And all this together is sort of the, I think the credo of value-based healthcare. Now, why should the industry care? I think it's clear access for patients is important for everybody. Also, the focus on outcomes. What has changed in the last 2 years, I would say, is the rising pressure, especially coming from new and very innovative products that came to market, and they came pretty quickly. I'm talking about here, for instance, about the curative therapies, the cell and gene therapies, the very personalized therapies, where there's a very, very high value proposition by the manufacturers. And on the other side, unfortunately, that's what we hear, at least from the paying side, there's sort of an evidence gap. So it's quite unclear how well all these therapies they really work on each single patient. And of course, the whole world becomes data-driven. Why should healthcare be an exception? So if you now move away, being reimbursed by a price times quantity quotation, and you link reimbursement by the value you have created in each patient, you will face those kinds of challenges. First, of course, data security, data privacy. We have heard that already in the other startup pitches. Also, data access. That's maybe the biggest challenge. Data is still very silent, and the willingness to share it is sometimes limited. In our case, there's also the lack of standards, referring to what is a good, positive outcome, what is a negative outcome. We have here, at least in the solid liquid tumor field, we already have some sort of standards that we can translate to other markets. We started in developing markets, so there's a lack of infrastructure on the provider side. The two parties, the manufacturers and the health insurance, they of course have conflicting interests, and therefore they do not trust each other. And the more of those kind of innovative contracts that you do, the more you're looking for a solution that helps you scale them up. And those are two solutions. So on the right side, you see Life App, which is an outcome capturing tool. We use it always in situations where there is no access to clean, structured, complete data sets. And it usually also gives you some additional benefits. So for instance, in Latin America, it is used as a patient management tool where you can document and work with the whole patient pathway. Then the data is fed in our main application, core application, which is called Life Value. Here are several algorithms behind it, and we also have filed one patent regarding detecting outliers. Here, the contract between a manufacturer and the health insurance company is digitalized. The data, of course, is a structured pooled and cleaned, so that you can see how well the things have worked, how much value you have created, and you can link then reimbursement to it. This ultimately allows that you can reduce the financial risk, of course, on one side, because the manufacturer is sharing the risk with you. You can also increase sales because the time that a drug or therapy can access the market can be done faster. It increases trust and transparency. You can also learn from the data and improve the therapy. And we think it's good that the manufacturers can demonstrate their value based in the real world and not only on clinical trials. This is what we have achieved so far. We are currently 11 employees. We have raised 3 million in capital. Here you see some of our partners that we're allowed to share. And we have, interestingly, we have started in Latin America, expanding there now, and now moving to Europe. We are now live in Switzerland as well. Yeah, so don't sell products, sell better health outcomes. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank you, Michel, for that presentation and also outlining all the shortcomings of the current situation. Well, one question, looking also at your last slide, you're addressing multiple stakeholders within the entire journey. What has been some initial feedback, and how does the feedback differ amongst those stakeholders?
Yeah, interestingly, I think the drive on this topic comes clearly from the manufacturer side. So this is one of the first things I've learned. They have new products, they need new business models. They have difficulties to access the markets. They want to be reimbursed by the value they have created. So clearly they drive it forward. We are now also understanding the payer side quite well. So we can also help them with these new ways of contracts. On the provider side, it's sometimes a little bit challenging if it comes to sharing the data. We have here also found ways how we can incentivize to do so. This depends on each market. As we heard, healthcare is also then in the end the local business. But actually what I think unites everybody is that you want to be focusing on the patient outcomes. And so we see on the philosophy and the willingness to do this a big motivation on all parties actually.
Absolutely. Well, we have one more question from Kevin. Why did you target Latin America first?
That was in the business plan from the first day. Some of the customers were bringing us there. It's interestingly, I think, a very evolving market because it's a big market, and of course they have even stronger budget restraints that we have in other parts of the world. So somehow it's probably the clash of the two parties has happened there earlier than in other places. And for us, it's super interesting because there's so much spirit over there. So we really like to work there. We're Spanish speaking as well in our team. So it's a lot of fun to work with them and bring that forward. And we were last year in Peru, for instance, in one of the hospitals. Then you can really see all the digital solutions you do, but there you see the patients that benefit from it, and that's really it's really nice.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Michelle, for answering the questions. Really great to have you on the batch, and we're looking forward what you will accomplish with our partners and also, well, with us together. So thanks again, and we're then jumping to the second last company by Roche. Actually, not the third last, I'm sorry. We're going to see Unit. They've induced a new terminus, something called General AI, Universal AI. And what it is, Jode will tell you more about it and how to use it with Roche or several stakeholders.
Hi, Fabian. I'm Jorge Zuleta, Innovation Director at UNIT, Universal Intelligence. The Universal Intelligence is an extension of the artificial intelligence, more the natural intelligence that we have. Okay, let's start.
Yes, please.
Here's the opportunity we are facing on a global level. 417 million people have diabetes type 2. 80% live in countries of low and middle income incomes, and less than 50% are diagnosed. And of this, less than 50% of patients diagnosed have adherence to the treatment. Up to 80% of diabetes 2 cases could be prevented by changing behaviors. This impact on 10% of the world's health budget, generating costly consequence for the patient because a non-personalized treatment, which considers only average information from biomarkers with a high demand, lack of diabetes 2, type 2 specialists, no integration of information, high cost, lack of accessibility, lack of follow-up, and a big saturation of the public health system. So we have a patient journey with isolated stage of non-integrated information, which doesn't allow us to capture information about their behaviors, individuality, circumstances, and network to guide and follow the patient in this journey. So this is the reason we have created Voyager. Voyager is a technology to integrate and personalize diabetes data. The user is the multidisciplinary team of nurse, social assistant, doctor, nutritionist, pharmacist, and psychologist, and the beneficiary is the patient. The first step is the capture of information using speech recognition. The user enters data by voice during the medical appointment. The second input are biomarkers from Roche device, and the third, the input is the clinical existing records. The inputs are processed in cloud computing using deep learning and natural language processing to generate an electronic medical record that incorporates pharmacology, care process, infrastructure, environmental condition, and conduct of the patient. And for the other side, the outcome is a stratified risk ranking per patient. So the Voyager technology is a tool for supporting clinical decisions. The outcome is a treatment customization with preventive alerts to improve care along patient journeys with behavior management, enabling confident healthcare decisions with critical patient prevention, delivering medical value on integrated testing solutions with accurate diagnosis. And in the next phase, the education and patient empowerment is our goal. To do this, we have a great team with more than 32 people with experience in maths, software engineering, UX UI, health, working together with Roche Chile. We are testing our system in 2 hospitals in Chile with the support of public fund from Chilean government, and we have a partnership with Amazon Web Services and an important accelerator from the south of Chile. Our goal is to scale our technology to reach and benefit more than 41 million patients in the world with a software as a service business model. We invite you to be part of the universal intelligence. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that great presentation, Jordi. Well, one question, you were just talking about global reach and how many patients you want to address. One question there is, how actually does your roadmap look like in terms of expansion? So what's the second market you want to go to, and then the third, and continuously?
Our objective first is the market in Latin America, in countries like Mexico and Argentina and Peru, for example, that has a big population, big problems with diabetes. In Chile, we have the similar problems, but our field of this is Latin America.
Okay. Well, and then also looking at the solution, what's your business model behind it? How do you monetize your solution?
Our business model is a software as a service. We want to have a charge per patient monitored in the system per year, for example. And it's a low cost comparing with the big cost that generates the diabetes to the public health system.
Okay, makes absolute sense. One more question. Also looking that you've already worked across multiple industries and now you're working with pharma. What are some of the, well, key differences you've identified during your journey?
The key difference is the way you change the conduct of the patient, of the conduct of the user. In this case, it's very important how we can change the conduct of the behavior to reach the healthy condition. And for us, it's the most important approach and difference compared with the other industries.
Okay, very insightful, thank you. One more question that's more from our side. So what do you expect from the Startup Creasphere program?
We expect to escalate to a global level. To be here is a great opportunity. We are the only one from the South Hemisphere in this program. And for us, it's very, very important to reach for all over the world in globally in this case.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much. We are very excited to accompany you during that journey in our 12 weeks, and we will see where that leads to. Then,
Thank you.
well, thanks. Then, now moving on to the second last one. It's called ReadyCare. The world sees a never seen before increasing number of chronic diseases, and there are many solutions out there which tackle those chronic diseases. ReadyCare has a very unique approach, and how they actually cope with that increasing number, Stephen will tell you all about it.
Thank you, Frederick. Just let me share screen. Yeah, my name is Stephen Egan. I would like to say thanks to Roche and Plug and Play for the opportunity to present today. Little bit of background: we are a digital therapeutics firm. Our core product is ReadyCare Control, and that's used to treat chronic disease. And I guess it's good to look at what digital therapeutics are. Digital therapeutics deliver evidence-based interventions to patients that are driven by high-quality software programs to prevent, manage, or treat a medical disorder or chronic disease. We like to use the term software as a drug to describe what we do. And this maps to our mission to reduce the global diabetes endemic. A little bit about the team. We brought together a multidisciplinary team to build a platform and service that scales to deliver robust clinical outcomes. Okay, Dr. Niall Caldwell, consultant cardiologist, is our clinical advisor. Andy is our clinical lead, supported by Laura. Mihal runs operations and a team of software developers, and we use Cedar for applied AI and machine learning. We've been working on treating metabolic syndrome using digital methods for nearly 6 years at this stage. We've ran a number of very successful studies and trials, pilots, which have shown very consistent clinical outcomes. We've seen 48% remission rates in type 2 diabetic participants. The product is now live in primary care settings, in pharmacy settings, and we've got over 140 corporate clients taking our services. About to enter the UK market, initially treating type 2 diabetic patients on very expensive drug doses. Just in terms of what we currently treat, current indications include prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, dyslipidemia, hypertension and prehypertension, overweight and obese conditions. In terms of our product pipeline, indications include heart failure, non-alcoholic fatty liver, IBS, epilepsy, and PCOS. So just to talk a little bit about where we fit into the clinical process. Lifestyle therapy fits established clinical protocols. All medical associations recommend lifestyle therapy as a first-line treatment for chronic disease. Yet today there's probably 30 years of evidence, maybe 100,000 peer-reviewed studies that demonstrate the effectiveness of lifestyle therapy in treating, even reversing chronic disease. Yet today, most doctors do not have an evidence-based, widely accessible, affordable solution to prescribe. And ReadyCare Control provides a solution to this therapy challenge. Just a little bit about the components of our product. To achieve type 2 diabetic remission and clinically significant results across the cardiometabolic spectrum, a multifaceted approach is used in ReadyCare Control. Our digital therapeutic brings together 5 evidence-based components, including chronic condition-specific education and health literacy. resources, peer-to-peer support, an evidence-based dietary protocol, and one-to-one health coaching. And just to talk about some of the clinical results we've experienced over the last 5 years, we've seen exceptionally consistent results through our product development journey. One study presented at the European Society of Cardiology in Portugal in 2018 showed a 48% remission on type 2 diabetic subjects, triglycerides reduced by over 14%, systolic blood pressure reduced by 11 millimeters of mercury. And these results are equivalent to mono drug therapy, and they actually address the root cause of the condition. Another recent study, which was conducted in a real-world primary care setting, showed a 71% remission on type 2 diabetic subjects, triglycerides reduced by 51%. We saw 2.8 full points reductions in BMI. This study is actually being presented at the American Heart Association scientific meeting in November of this year. And just to talk about the size of the problem that we are addressing, 6 out of 10 folk or adults in the Western world probably have a chronic condition. In the States, 4 out of 10 adults in the US have 2 or more chronic conditions. And these type of conditions are probably responsible for about 65% of all healthcare costs. So at this stage, well, I'd like to maybe take a few questions.
Fantastic, Stephen. Thank you so much. Actually, I was about to interrupt you, but that's perfect. Well, one question. You were claiming, first of all, impressive results. You were claiming that everything goes through a neural network. That neural network, how many clinical cases was that trained on?
In one particular study, there was 50 participants. The recent study we're presenting at the American Heart Association was an analysis of 48 subjects.
Okay, fantastic. Well, and then how far along the regulatory process are you? Are you on the road to receive CE mark or FDA approval?
Yes, we're in the process of doing a capital raise now to take ourselves through the CE process and embrace the new regs across Europe. And we're also actively looking at the pre-cert program in the States.
Okay, fantastic. Then, Steve, thank you so much for the insights. We're really looking forward to have you on our batch and working together.
Thanks, Frederick. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Okay, so now, last but not least for Roche, we're going to see Inscripta. Well, looking at a practice of a doctor, there's a lot of work to do, a lot of work on a patient, but then there's also the bureaucratic part, where you have to document everything after you've seen the patient. There's one company out there called Inscripta, and they're tackling especially that issue. How they do it, Simo will tell you all about it.
Exactly. Thank you so much. And also, first and foremost, happy to be here with the program, and thank you for PNP and Roche to be given this opportunity to present our company and the technology that we have developed. So let me just share my screen. All right, so here we go. Also, just again, want to emphasize that I'm super happy to see that at least on 2 previous presentations, speech was mentioned as one of the mediums to convey information between a person and an information system. And that is what we are all about. So we are the essential alternative for those Googles, Microsofts, and Amazons of the world for more accurate and affordable tailor-made speech recognition solutions for particular selected large-scale industrial verticals. Now, this might seem a bit abstract when you put it in this kind of a context, but let's take a look at an example. This, I think, was already discussed by Lab Twin. So documentation is a compulsory thing that you just need to be able to convey information between different kinds of medical professionals. And it just happens to be the most time-consuming back office task as well. So there's a famous article by the magazine Forbes called Death by 1,000 Clicks. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it addresses the issue that we're looking to tackle over here. And luckily, we found the solution. By creating these medical notes, by using your voice, as I'm doing right now, to be interacting with you. We're not typing, we're discussing using voice. You can speed up the process by 4-fold. I want to bring you an example case because, again, just not to discuss this on a top level only, but take a very concrete example from just a few months back when we acquired our newest customer in the laboratory sector. FimLab Laboratories is a laboratory service provider located here in Finland, where I'm also located myself. And previously they spent, and these are actual figures, so they spent 1.8 million euros on outsourced transcription services to be able to provide their medical professionals the capability to focus on their actual core competence. We were able to reduce that cost down to 0.7 million euros. So if you quickly count that, then we brought them cost savings in the range of 1 million euros, or actually 1.1 million euros to be precise. And this then, of course, you can then use on something a bit more productive. Let's say, for example, COVID testing, which is quite an actual problem at the moment. But this, again, is just a single customer and I would say a rather smallish case example still. So, of course, the opportunities that lie beyond are measured in the tens of millions. And of course, one thing that I also want to mention is that by being able to deliver the information immediately to your peers, this has a value of its own, which is not as easily measured. But the turnaround times that were previously measured in days even were then reduced to just minutes. About the competence, about the technology itself. So we actually have a quite a heavy peer-reviewed paper that I can deliver you with, but just to highlight some facts from the abstract is that we took 4 languages, Finnish, Swedish, Arabic, and English, which are entirely apart from themselves. As you might know that Finland and Sweden are located next to each other, they are still not linguistically linked. And for these 4 languages, we actually hold the best results in the entire world when it comes to automatic speech recognition. And this applies to even Arabic, which is a language that we do not understand a single word of, and not, for example, even the script or the writing system. But for example, Cairo University and the renowned MIT were left behind in this particular contest that took place in 2017. Top-notch technology. Actually, well, let me give you a demo. Let's jump into this. So, this is an example of how our speech recognition system works. It performs approximately 1 million calculations for each word on our cloud and then delivers the results in less than a second. The system is language agnostic, which means that you can use it for every language imaginable and include professional lingo such as medical terminology. There we go. Hopefully everybody can see this. About the team, you've met me. Joni Aaltonen is then our CTO and the brain behind the actual technology. Our Chief Scientific Officer, Peter Smith, is one of the most highly renowned professionals in speech recognition sphere. And I'm also happy that he is with the team and will be included also in this particular project that we are now looking to engage together with Roche. Thank you. Happy to answer all your questions.
Well, Simo, thank you so much for that presentation and also the very, well, congratulations to the very impressive, well, developments, especially competing against Harvard and MIT. Well, already one question beforehand. What's the direct feedback? So we've seen something by FinLab. But what's also the feedback from, for instance, a doctor or really the person that uses it every day?
I guess the best example is that many of our end users have ended up investing in the company after they have adopted the solution. So that speaks for itself. So they've like raised their hand and asked us whether they could pitch in a small ticket to get into this project with us.
Okay, that's actually the, well, best feedback you can get, right?
I would say so. Yeah, thanks.
Then also looking in terms of markets and also where you want to scale your solution, what's the current status here?
At the moment, we're very much centered around European languages because of the highly developed healthcare system, which requires this level of documentation. But then again, of course, because the language or the technology is language agnostic, I mean, the world is your oyster, so to speak. So you can engage in whichever, let's say, dialect on the Indian subcontinent, for example, just to give you an idea that there really is no limitations when you consider these language agnostic AI technologies.
Fantastic. Well, then also one last question. What do you seek to accomplish during the pilot with Roche?
Well, I would be happy to see our technology integrated directly into Roche's laboratory information systems, in the same way that we have now done with other let's say a bit smaller vendors on our local market, for example. But also I see great synergies with some of the previous presenters that I guess already mentioned, since they brought up speech as one of the methods to input information into their systems.
Fantastic. Well, we see them also, so we're really excited to see what you accomplish. So that sums it up for well, Roche. Thank you very much for listening here.